Hey, welcome to week 5 of our live sessions. I'm just checking that everything's set up correctly at the moment. Starting to get used to this now. Today we're going to do something that
Welcome to week 5.
I've got to learn to do that quicker. Uh, the idea today is we're going to take on a live project. I was actually on a onboarding call with our SKOOL coaching community, SKOOL with a K, information in the description if you're interested, where I've been working with Sherry from Australia, who's created a new website in the recent weeks, and she's asked me to have a look through it. And we had a run through it, and I gave her some points of feedback this morning. But what I've also suggested we do is we use her project as our live um, project to run through this week. And what I'm going to do is take the existing website, which is a really strong starting point and mightily impressive considering it's a very first attempt at working with Squarespace. And I'm going to set it up in SquareForge, which is our template builder, which allows me to get through things much quicker. And we're going to build a separate trial website that we probably won't go live with, but it might give us some ideas, some contrasting approaches that she could then decide to integrate into her website. And then that's where our coaching community can help, because we can work with her on our weekly support calls to integrate these ideas into her designs. So the idea is we're going to take you through the homepage redesign from start to finish. I'm going to download the assets using a Chrome extension that we use on a daily basis, image downloader. We're going to have a look at the color palette. We're going to keep the same font throughout, which is Poppins, which is available on Squarespace. And also, I'm going to, if time permits, have a go at creating a sample video hero. So this will be a 15 to 20-second show reel at the top of the website with our main statement overlaying it. The challenge we've got here is we don't want it too long because that will increase load time and that will be frustrating. But this website's all about experience, as we'll see in just a moment. And by going after that experience and that approach, that can certainly help to alleviate any issues about load speed. She's not selling widgets for a couple of dollars at a time, where it's all about speed and efficiency of the purchase process. When someone is looking for a new experience, it tends to take a little bit more time going through the website, and it's about showing show don't tell as much as possible. So it's not a case of, okay, if you're interested in this product or service, let's get you to the shop page as quickly as possible. We probably need to do a little bit more explanation around the service offering or the product, and a little bit more upselling first. So it needs to look more glossy magazine, and that's where hopefully I can come in today and help. So we're going to go with the video hero. The other challenge we've got with that is we don't have the video footage yet. Sherry's moving out of winter in Australia, so the weather hasn't been good enough for the experience to take some really good video footage of it. And so that's one of the challenges we've got in the short term, is we'll probably need to look at a placeholder, which is currently in place whilst we're getting the video set up. But I suppose it's time for me to show you what we've got to start with and some of the discussion points that we had today. So I'm just going to hop over now and share the screen. Okay, so now we've got, in fact, I'm going to jump out of that because I'm a bit concerned that I've just shared the one browser window. So I'm going to share the entire desktop to be on the safe side. Okay. Move that part out of the way. Right, so this is the existing live website. We can see here we've got the logo positioned correctly top left-hand corner. This is a placeholder. There is going to be a logo created for this brand in the coming weeks. We've got a navigation here, which a bit of the feedback I said was it's a little bit compact, so we can look at a little bit more spacing, give that a bit more breathing space as we're working through it. We've got a cart option, which my follow-up question was, are there going to be any products on sale from day one? Because we could hide that in the short term if there were no products being sold, but there are going to be digital products, vouchers, etc., sold through the website. So that's really important to have the cart option for when people add those vouchers to their carts. Then we've got a main call to action in that masthead, which is the booking inquiry. And note we've got rounded corners on here, which works with the brand and works really nicely. Then we move on to the hero section. We've got this heading 1 here, our main heading for the website. We've got a strapline below it. The balance between the two works really well. We know where the focus is on the content, and we're looking at keywords. We've got river, Zen meditation, and experience. So that pretty much, I would say, is spot on. Without being an expert in this subject matter, it seems to have covered everything and everything we'd want from both search engines and getting the right words across in the right place, based on what I know. Now, we may tweak those over time, and that's why a website's never finished. We're always looking to evolve, get in as much data as possible. Are these words resonating? One thing I've recommended with the client is she goes out to her existing client base and asks them for their feedback. What words would work for them? Once we've got that, we've got then the tagline. Tranquility is a good buzzword to set the scene and to set the emotion. Again, that ties in with serene waters. We're not seeing conflicting keywords or phrases there that that conflict with each other. And then we've got the location. So the follow-up question was, what's a catchment area for target audience? And it's within a 1-hour radius of this location, which I think is in Adelaide in South Australia. And so it's the follow-up question then was, will her customers within that radius know this location? And the answer was yes. However, for people further away and to avoid getting loads of inquiries from people maybe in Perth or Sydney, too far away to be realistically a strong candidate, that's something then that she would need to, I think, add into that sentence to say South Australia or Adelaide in that strapline. Not essential, but it's just what we're trying to do with the website is we're trying to guide our target audience to the call to action, which is inquire, sign up, buy now, etc. But a lot of the time we're trying to shape misaligned visitors so they don't go through a 15-minute experience only to be frustrated that it's just not practical for them. So by saying the location, we're actually narrowing down on our niche, and this would be a geographical niche with also adding a shared interest onto that niche as well. So we spoke about age demographics, and it's quite a wide age demographic, which I'm usually skeptical of because, you know, the one thing I will say is if you were under the pressure, you had to pick one age range, or even ideally an exact age, what would it be? And then you try and kind of build out around that. In this case, I genuinely think that there's a wider age demographic because they're drawn to this experience from shared interest. So it doesn't matter what the job is necessarily. It doesn't matter about a whole other factors. Do they have kids? Do they have, you know, do they travel the world throughout the year, or do they stay in the same location? None of that matters, simply because it's the experience is the bit that's of interest. Hope that makes sense. Then we go on to this signposting. I think it does. There's a little thing here with the all caps here and then lowercase there. That's a very simple, quick fix. I think this needs to be more show, don't tell. I don't think the images, I think the images work, look good, especially looking at this one. It ties into, it feels relaxed, just looking at it, like the legs dangling over the water. It brings the river into the approach as well. Mindfulness, again, we're seeing different demographics as well. We could potentially look at slightly older demographic. The breathing one is the one potentially I'd be more likely to change, simply because it doesn't look like it's the same location. It could be that she offers this over multiple locations, but that's something that would be a point of discussion. And also, potentially, is there another way of telling this story? Do they link together? Do we go with iconography instead of photos, although I don't dislike the photos. I think they work well. But as we move down now, this is where the website really comes to life. We've got this text area here and the image opposite, and then the image opposite, that one inverted. So the challenge here, though, is I think this is telling too much for a homepage. I think the photos look fantastic and they really sell the experience. But I would be surprised if a large number of viewers, having first landed on the homepage, will take to 2 paragraphs of content and 3 for this one here. In fact, what we'll normally look for is, and what I've recommended is, one title, potentially just a sentence or a paragraph at most. So we're looking at that being the most amount of content for it, and then signposting off to a dedicated page where you can get all the information you need in one page. Likewise with the testimonials, this is where the colors start to look, consistency is great, obviously, and really important, but it starts to look very much the same, as opposed to you go out for a meal and you have too much of one thing, even if it's a good thing on your plate, it can start to feel a little bit bland as we look through it. So this is something that I'd like to do something with, is this testimonials area, to break up the green here and then the green in the footer. Also, I would potentially look at a darker color in this footer to separate that footer, and we could even look at jumbo footer as well. That's where we can bring the location in as well, because even though we're going to mention it in the strap line, I think we need something else as well, like a map listing. And the great thing about in that footer area is it will repeat on every page. So now I need to put my money where my mouth is and actually start building this. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to use SquareForge, which will just speed things up. And I'm just going to, I've already started the process of building it. So I'm just created the name for it. I'm going to skip through all of these Squarespace startup guides. And if we go to the pages, I'm now going to remove that support page. It's set to homepage, so I can't at the moment. So I'm going to create a new page called home. Very creative, but it's essential that we keep it really simple. If I go to settings, and I can scroll down now, and I can set that home as our home page. And now I can select a footer that I think will work well with this. I want to play around with more circular images. So we've got an example here, for example, where we've got the circular images in place. So I want to play around with that style a little bit more and maybe bring that in here. So the circular effect, I think, will work really nicely. I also want to play around with some textures if there's an option for that afterwards. And so I think I'm going to go with this footer here, but I'm going to change this section to maybe include a map location as well and a couple of photos. So what I do with SquareForge first is edit the footer section, and I delete the sections I don't want. Do you know what? I think it'll probably be easier picking one of the templates with a map, like this one is a good example here, and then adding 2 circular images, I think, in there. So bear with me, I think I know what I'm doing. So with this, we remove the sections that we don't want. This is quite different to how we use the Forge everywhere else. We can't add templated areas into the footer in Squarespace, or not as I know it at the moment. I hope that's a feature they'll bring in. So instead of, they've got default preset footer sections, but this is the only way I could find when I was building SquareForge to get the effect that I wanted. So there we go. So I'm going to save it there, and we've got a rough example of a footer in place. And what I'm going to do first and foremost is just get the structure of this footer right without worrying too much about the content at this stage. So we've got image blocks in place. We've got a footer menu option. We've got the copyright notice. And I think we can go with a more compact layout. So let's bring this map right over to the left-hand side so we can make good use of that space. And let's bring this content over. And that means we've created a bit more space so we can do something with this. So I'm going to duplicate that image, overlap it. And we've got two photos. And we could put a third one in and complete Mickey Mouse, but we'll leave it like that. And I think what we'll do is we're going to remove the gap option. And we should be able to get that to fill the full height. I think because we don't have any content at the moment, it's just putting an extra space above. I think we can get rid of that in a bit. But that's okay as a placeholder footer. And let's start looking at the sections of this page and bringing them in as we want. So we're going to have a hero that's going to be similar to this. It'll be a video hero. So we're going to go with Hero Classic. And let's have a look through some of these options here. I think we're going to go with this one. The reason we're going to do this is it's got two call to actions. And I think there's a really nice flow to that in terms of how we can bring that into our page. So what I'm going to do is just save it as a favorite section. And then I move on to the next part. So next up, we're going to have our signposting. So we're going to go with a grid of 4 signposts. So let's go down to our signpost section and have a look at the classic options. Just seeing what's available. You know what, I think we'll go with this one. Simple, clean lines. We might go rounded corners on them to tie in with the button on the top. And then what we're going to do is add a circular image or even a rectangular image into each of these. So I'm going to save that as a favorite. Go back, look at the next section. This is where I think we can go with a two signpost layout and go with kind of quite beefy, large images, maybe something like this here as well, where these images can fill the width of the page. The beauty of these templates in SquareForge is that we don't have to stick to the structures you've got here. You can use them as a starting point to start building out your own custom designs of it. It just speeds things up quite a lot and gives you some inspiration if you've got a block. The other one then is the testimonials. I'm not a big fan of this structure. I can see what it's done just to keep it consistent, but this is probably the one area I'd want to change. So one option is we could go with single, and this one's got the star rating option, which is quite nice. I can look at some custom code to get that to auto scroll. I think we've created that in the past. I have to double check. That one works quite nicely, just really simple, and I think we'll go with that one there. So again, we'll save that as a favorite, jump out of that, and then we're into the footer. I think we'll go with that to start with. There is a blog link, but I don't know if the blog live yet. It is. So again, I think we can put in a summary block with a feed from the blog, which will keep that homepage nice and up to date as well. So let's go and have a look at our summary blocks. We've got really simple summary block options. This offset one could be quite nice. We've got one here with a featured one as well. So if it's featured, it will go in this section here. So it means that it can kind of withstand the test of time. But I think we'll go with this here. It's got the blog search option as well. So again, save that as a favorite. Okay, we've got all the blocks we want to create our website homepage. Now we go into the homepage, and this is where it just saves a lot of time. I've got to start from the bottom because it will save it and stack them as you save them. So I'm going to add them in one at a time. Not going to worry about the colors at the moment. We can change all of that really quickly. Not sure why that's not adding, but it added the blog. Interesting. If I save it, and if I refresh, no doubt it'll probably have that testimonial in 5 times or something like that. Yeah, typical. Squarespace occasional bugginess and my lack of patience combined is a perfect mixture sometimes. Okay. I'm quite happy with that. That's a nice, clean, simple flow through the design. So this, for example, if we got a video header here, which will be generally darker tones, because with white text overlaying it, we can invert this section here. So if I go to edit section and go to colors, we can go with, say, a light 1, and we can change the border colors when we're ready as well. So we don't have to worry about that. We've got a white background for this section here, and this is something I want to do, is to take this image to full height and full width, just so we get that banner style, because those photos are stunning and we want to make sure that they really pop out of the page. So I'm going to save that. As you'll see, I save regularly, and then we're going to jump back in and edit this section here now. But what we're going to do is remove the, no, we're not going to do that. I don't know why I did that. What we're going to do is remove the fill screen option, and that basically gets rid of the extra spacing above and below the section, meaning that we've got full control over where it starts and ends. So we can see it's flush now to the bottom of this content block. And before we put in text content, we're going to add in our images first, just so we can see it come to life. So I'm going to go back to the original site, and I'm going to go use our image downloader Chrome extension. So that photo is stunning, and I think it doesn't quite do it justice with such a strong overlay on that. So we're going to download all of these photos. Just going to save them in the downloads folder for now. And then we're going to go, actually, and we're going to upload them all in one. It's just quicker. So if we go to website tools, nope. What am I looking for? Oh, need to go back to home. There we go, and assets here. Squarespace keeps changing the location of these, which is frustrating. So when we install SquareForge, all the assets are in a folder, so meaning that they don't interfere with the rest of our folder structure. What we can do now is upload the images we just downloaded. And instead of having to upload them one at a time afterwards, we can just bring them all in as and when we want to. Okay, so even though we're going to have a go at doing a video header, time permitting, or a video hero, we're actually just going to drop that photo in that Sherry's chosen on her site as a starting point. So I go to background, and then I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to select from library instead of upload, because we've already uploaded them in bulk. I'm going to tick the one that I want to bring in, and we can see now that that is looking rather nice. So that image looks stunning, as I said. So I'm going to want to try and keep it as light as possible. But if we go to the background, we can add an overlay. So we can see with the color on this, it's on a gray background. So if we go to the darkest mode, so that's similar to what we had it, and how much further back can I take it, but we don't lose the detail in the image. Okay, so that is a decent kind of balance, but this text is still too small to be really seen easily. So we've got a couple of options. We can increase the font size of it, which I would definitely do in this one anyway. And we can't get away from the detail in the background here. So one thing I could do is add a block, a shape. I believe there's frosted effects that we can apply to that shape. Don't think we need this line. And we can keep these buttons below. Move that behind to the back. And this would be a darker color. It can help, obviously, to add the color palette in first because we know what we're working with. But because I want this to be flexible enough that it will work on different color setups and stuff like that, we're going to leave it for now. And there's different color blend mode options, but also there's a blur option here as well. And then if we were to go into the color option here and then bring down the opacity, increase our blur. It's more blur in the edges. I've had this working before. We've managed to create like a frosted effect behind the text, and it's not quite working as I want at the moment. It could be the photo. It doesn't lend itself well to that type of effect because it's taken too far away from what we're looking at. But what I'd say is play around with the effects and see what you can come up with in your designs. I certainly want to make these buttons, probably just bring them a bit narrower. Yeah, so they're the same width now. So I want plenty of breathing space around the text. But that's looking a bit clunky at the moment, and I'm not overly enamored with that. So the screen is for lighter effects. That's not what I'm after. I think I can go full height, which just draws in, but it still looks a little bit muddy, and I'm not keen on that effect at the moment. I think we may have to have another look at this in a bit, but here's another option. We could go with similar colors to the backdrop. Yeah, so it's blurring the backdrop, but it's not blurring the photo behind, which is what I wanted to create, like a frosted effect to make the text easier to read. But I think for now, we're going to go with that. The contrast isn't quite as high as I want it to be. I want a little bit more separation with the backdrop. So I could go and just make this a little bit darker there. But it's a tricky one because we want to kind of move away from that dark, heavy effect there. And this allows us to get the text that we want overlay in the image, but also to set the scene as well. So it could well be just a case of playing it around. We could go drop this into Photoshop and then edit the photo to fit this. But the beauty of this is this will work now when we go onto mobile view as well. I think I'm going to leave that section there. Of course, we're going to change the text afterwards. That's caused a problem. You can see it's actually bleeding over the edge, so we can't do that effect. So I'm going to have to remove the blur. And we'll go with a semi-transparent line over that left-hand side. You may prefer that effect. I'm actually torn at the moment. This is exactly the type of thing that I would come back to at a later stage. So we've got a border at the bottom of that hero, which I want to get rid of. I want it cleaner lines, and of course we're going to change that color palette so we've got a nicer color in there as well. We're going to go into color lovers and we'll pick out a color palette as well, see what we can get to work. But that's one way we can display a hero unit, is to have it split like this so we can see the full photo, but it continues behind that semi-transparent overlay. This is something that we can do with the Fluid engine in Squarespace. That would have been much harder to do on a previous version. It may not be your cup of tea, but actually the more I see it, the more it's growing on me. Okay, I'm going to select these sections now and try and create some more space. I did that wrong. Just had a thought. We could go with a circular background there. So I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Because the one thing we're going to do is try and bring more circles into our design. And I think we're going to go with a 20 pixel rounded corner as being our default and see what that looks like. And I'm just going to change the stroke color as well, just so we can see it a little bit clearer. Okay. It's starting to take shape, I think. We'll just bring these down so we create a little bit more space for our image above. Okay. So now with the image, we've got a couple of different options. We can either go with full size images that snap over top of the content area. With that, we're still needing to bring this down. So when I build this from scratch, and this is probably what I would have done here, is actually delete 3 of these, work on the first one, get that structured exactly as I want, and then duplicate that. In fact, I'm going to do that now. because the content's changing anyway. We can see the strokes going around the image. So what we're going to do now, I want to do that, is let's add a photo in first. I think it would probably be good to just to put the content in on this as well. So breathing. So what I often do is just select after the first character, because that will keep the font style, size, and placement, center in this case. Otherwise, you can end up, it'll just overwrite all the styles and you have to reset them afterwards. So a little pro tip there, that'll help. With this image now, we're going to browse, select from library, should I say, and go and double check the image that we've got for that. We add that image in place. If you're seeing that if you're seeing a border left and right, what we can do now is go to the pencil icon, go to design, and we want it to fill the frame. And also, we've got some options now. We can either keep that bottom line straight across, or we can make them rounded as per the top ones. And sometimes it's a bit of trial and error, see what works. But we're going to just go for this option here, which allows us to put rounded corners on individual corners. So we've got the top left and the top right, both got rounded corners on them. And we can see now that we've got the border fits perfectly around that image, but we've got a straight edge at the bottom. Again, you may like it, you may not. Don't really care. Just kidding. So if we duplicate that section and once more across, okay, they all look the same, but we need to change the content anyway. What this means is, what I'm hoping is that it's more likely to keep this structure on mobile view as opposed to mixing and matching where the images are versus the titles. With Fluid Engine, Squarespace have made some big changes to how the mobile view works. It gives us more flexibility in how we can edit on mobile. See, that's why I select after the first character. It gives us a lot more flexibility on mobile, but on the flip side, it just takes longer to create the mobile layouts. Maybe adds an extra 15 minutes per page on average, or for detailed pages anyway. For me, the trade-off's just about worth it because as a designer, I want that little bit of extra flexibility. It means that I can make the mobile experience better. And when we look at the stats, most websites, and this one will probably have 60% plus, if not higher. Oops, don't want to do that. Will be viewing on mobile. It could even be up to the 80% mark. Because it's business to consumer, that makes a big difference. Okay, so just got to remember to remove those first characters when we paste it in. And just adjust it, because Squarespace does like to assume what you're going to do with your content and it will change accordingly. Sometimes it helps us. Sometimes, as in this case, it just creates an extra 20 seconds of pointing and clicking. Okay. I think before we put our color palette in place, that's looking quite nice. Let's just get the other photos in place. Now, the client may look at this and actually prefer the original one. That's absolutely fine. The idea of this is to give some contrasting options. And also, don't forget that you can actually change the focal point of each image as well. So if you want to make sure the balance is right, that's an option. And let's finally replace this last image. I think it's this one here. Just double check. Yep. Okay, they follow the same color scheme. They look, I think, really, really smart. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that's come together. Sometimes it's thinking I want all this together, which I don't. Again, it's a personal taste to offset this content to the left as opposed to having it going across the center. The reason I've chosen that is just gives us more control over positioning it over the image. However, we could put a block like this with rounded corners in the center and have everything else going on around it and keep that original structure. But I wanted to bring in some call to actions into that section as well. Okay, so now let's have a look at these next two sections. We might have to do something here because the fonts might be a bit too long to fit on one line, but we'll just see how it goes first. If they're both consistent, then there's certainly something we can do. Okay, that just about fits on this size screen, but as we get smaller, it will drop to and truncate it to two lines, but I think we can be okay with that. This time, we're going to just take the first paragraph and then have better call to actions in these buttons. So they're not going to say learn more when we're done because that's a missed opportunity by just having learn more on those buttons. We want to say a little bit more about the page that we're going to link through to. And let's take that first paragraph here as well. Choice we're going to make now is whether we want the buttons to flow or whether we want them to be positioned adjacent to each other. And that's your choice. One easy way around this is to tweak the content so that they both roughly are the same length, meaning that it just balances out nicely. One thing we can look at as well is these button styles is to have them with rounded corners as well, just so it all ties into the overall style. This testimonial section works well because of the rounded corners on these buttons. We can't make these as standard rounded corners, but we could potentially put some custom code in that would do that. But we don't want to be a slave to that style either. So it's a case of just having an overall, like, really striking looking feel. So this left one now, I think this is yeah, the boat. Because we've got the location on show here, it doesn't matter too much if we go in a little bit closer on that boat, and especially because of the ratio. We could, of course, bring these images so they're deeper, but then we're adding a little bit more scrolling to the page. So that's another trade-off we've got. Let's add in our second image. Again, I'm moving the images to the bottom so that when we put this text back to white, there's enough contrast, hopefully, behind it. I'm just Command A on my Mac just to select all text, Control A on a Windows computer. And that's the magazine layout style that I wanted to put in place. I could at this stage just go through and add in all of the rest of the content, but what I want to do first is to show you how a video header can work. hopefully it will work today. And the other thing I won't do is bring in the blog posts, just because the time it will bring it in. Yes, it will complete and finish this layout, but what I want to focus on in the remainder of this workshop is the font selection, color palette, and then that video hero, and then seeing how it all fits in. But out of interest, what structure do you prefer? Do you prefer the original, which I'm a big fan of? This was a first project on Squarespace, and what Sherry's done here really well is just kept it simple, straightforward, clean text, but some of the feedback would be like the amount of text in each of these sections. So what I've done is taken this, which is a lot of information, and tried to put it in a flow where we're just giving bite-sized info at the same time, or when we are adding a paragraph, as in this case here, we're structuring it in a way that looks like it's, we're firmly in control of the layout. You could argue that we need an extra section in here for a basic kind of about us, which goes beyond the introductory message. Also, I've just seen that this is not white, it's off-white. So by making it white, it just jumps out a little bit more. And I think I want to do that actually is to add in a welcome section below that hero. So I'm going to go back to the Forge. So these are all pages that are not on the menu, and we can collapse them up as we want. And we're going to go for a short content area, or maybe even a classic content area. And see. I think we'll just go for this substructure. Centrally aligned paragraph that ties in with everything else. One call to action to an about page. And because we don't have any content from the existing homepage, I'm hoping I can find some on another page of the site that we can drop in. Because we've gone with the like slate gray or silver backdrop there, we can go with white background here, and it just creates a nice, very clean flow through the site. But we haven't brought in the color palette yet, I'm conscious of. So what I'm going to do here now is go with this option here. I think we need a photo in this, but I'll leave that up to Sherry herself to decide. I don't think there's oh yeah, we've got a photo here. So we're going to use that on the homepage because that personalizes our homepage really well. And I think we'll change about us to about me. Again, makes it more personalized. So many people, when they build websites for consultancies or similar services, they're very reluctant to put in a profile of themselves because they feel like I feel like they're just kind of making themselves too important. And in fact, what it does though is it just makes it more personal. And that's most important, is that we have that personal touch. That's actually inset one, so I'm going to bring that out more to give us more space, and that works really well to give us a bit more of the clear water on that. And we've got a nice straight line now coming down the left-hand side of this layout. These are set in closer, so we could again bring these right out to the edge. And that means we can make this area more compact. And you'll often find you'll have lots of tweaks like this as you go through and work through your design, go away, come back to it later once you've had some more chance to look at it. But what we're doing here now is we're taking, with this design here, a lot of it depending on the original color scheme. and style. And also that there were a couple of things that are individual to each page. Like, for example, the animation effect here. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these animation effects. They can look really nice. I would probably slow down that animation. And I think we can find a place in our homepage where that will work. So I think we can do an art background on our testimonial section, and that seems like a really nice place for it. And then if we can find a ripple effect, that really doesn't want to be edited. This is the section we had problems with on the previous thing. It doesn't seem to be updating in real time. So I may have to rebuild this section. Yeah, it's not updating at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new quote section. So I'll add in this one, and hopefully this one will behave. Okay, so now I need to just tweak the spacing of these elements. Okay, I'm trying to remember what the setting is to reduce that gap. But if I align that to the bottom, we can do that. And that's fine just for a placeholder. You can play around with the settings, and they're not always in the most obvious positions on these um, slider effects, or list view effects as Squarespace calls them. So once we've edited the content, we can now go to the section, and hopefully when I put the art background in, yeah, it will change on the fly, which makes it so much easier to edit. Okay, so let's go into the settings here. Motion. Just have that kind of subtle movement. Change the seed, see what it comes up with. Have them come from the edge. Yeah, that's what I'm after, the advanced settings here. So I'm going to remove the number of shapes, increase their size. And then you can come up with some really nice individual effects. But the difference is here now, especially when we apply the color, I think that will really help. going to remove that one because it would have just taken too long to edit it. But there is something we can bring in that styling now from the other website and allow it to flow within the design of this one. And I'm going to save it at this stage. And then our final structural change then is to add the thumbnail image in here. I'm going to add a new image, and this is, even though we got this from the Forge as a starting point, we've changed it quite a lot already. And let's bring that text over. Let's, this time I'll need to upload the image because it's not already in the library. Come on, Elwin, pick the right option. There we go. Check the image, it's 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, so we know that it's large enough. And then if we can have a high enough resolution with that image. And now we can go to the shape option and drop that into a circle. So again, it flows with the overall look and feel. Now you may be pointing out that this is rounded corners and this is a circle and they're different shapes, obviously. But I think that when you go rounded, it doesn't matter how much rounded, as long as there's consistency and identity to each design element. So here we want to keep this almost pill shape or rounded corner tab section, which those images and the way that they work within there, we could put them as circular images in the middle here, similar to the original design. But that's just my design choice. And yeah, you don't have to follow that to the letter. In fact, I don't. I tweak it and change it from site to site based on what I feel is the right approach for it. Okay, that's starting to take shape, especially the top half where we've got some real photos in and real content that just makes it stand out. Let's have a look now at the fonts and color options. So I go back into edit, go to site styles option, and let's go to the fonts first. And we're going to customize our fonts. And we're going to go with Poppins, which was the font used on the current site. And I've got nothing against that. I really like it. So let's dig that one out. We may have to tweak some of the weight options. So just tweak some of the letter spacing as well. Just making that a little bit more compact. So it's 0.01 M. Because we've already selected Poppins, it's coming up now as an option. And again, we'll need to change the weight option. We could go slightly heavier for paragraph content if we want. And we might have a bit of tweaking. Once we change the font, we might have some reshuffling to do here. We can see this. I think is heading 4. So we can just change the heading 4 to reduce that, because this font seems to be by its default size is larger than the previous font. So we just have to do a bit of tweaking for that. But it still flows nicely with that font. Normally, I would actually change the fonts and colors right at the start. I don't know why I didn't do that today. Just got excited, carried away with looking at some of the other options we've got as well. And the color palette option, we've got some color palettes here, which can give some quite kooky results, as shown in this example here. Or we can customize our color palette and edit it accordingly. So one thing we're looking for here is light. So top from the left, we go really light colors. I'm just going to go with that kind of sandstone color, but really light. Just do it by eye. We're trying to follow a 60-10 rule. We've got 60% of kind of our main color, which would be white in this case, then 30% of this light silver, and then 10% of our impact color. So we've got this tone of green. So I'm going to keep it similar to this. But also I can play around with it a little bit. Obviously, these colors don't go together well, so may have to re-look at that backdrop behind the text. Let's have a look at some of the other colors here. So what I'm trying to do here is get a balance so we get a similar color, but it's got a bit more impact to it, but also the contrast is strong enough to the white text, so we don't run into any accessibility issues. That's really important. And so I think we're going to go with that for our action color, the center color of the design. And then I think we will keep these two here. So they've got a really nice, the green stands out. I'll try that to see if there's enough contrast between those end colors. And these are just placeholder colors as well. If you're struggling with getting the right color palette for your design, go to colorlovers.com. That's with a UK spelling. And there's loads of free color palettes that the designers have uploaded. So if you go to the browse option and palettes, and then you can search for palettes based on keyword. So Zen, for example, so this that almost duck egg blue could be a really nice color to work with. Likewise with these, which you've got, that's a really nice tone. That's similar to the option we've got, which has just got a little bit more impact to it. So yeah, I wasn't going to do this, but let's tweak these colors. Don't think it's a million miles away from what I had anyway. Oh, it is quite different. Okay. So we're going to be bold and we'll try some new things. Don't know why that ad came up there. And we're going to use this color as well, I think. And we could try one or the other. Tend to go with darker colors here. So this is what I normally do is find a color and then bring it down based on the same section. So again, we're going to go really dark for this section here. Got plenty of color in it. And we could really change it up and go for a variation of that color throughout. And I think I'm going to go with that. So this is where we've got a decision to make now on this this hero section because the colors don't match the new color palette, but yet the colors of the photo are quite different. So I think what we're going to have to do is adjust this overlay to our new color palette, and that's looking quite nice just with the solid block, I think. But as you can see, it's changed quite a lot by just changing those colors. But let's edit the section. We could go.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
I'm not sure what happened there with Alexa, but we'll carry on. So what I'll do now is change the colors. So let's try some alternatives. So we could go with that heavily contrasting option. That might be a bit too bold for this project. That's looked a little washed out. I think we'll go with that, but what we'll do is we'll change the border colors to that lighter tone. Yeah, happy with that. Of course, this section here now needs some work done to it. So go back into this now and we can change the shape colors so that they're less obvious in terms of how they overlay the background. But that ties in our overall color palette quite nicely. I could look to this darkest green is just bring a bit more of blue shades into it. But that's looking quite different now to the original. So it may be a type of thing that want to go back to more the original or kind of happy with this new structure. It may not be a tranquil enough color palette. It may be a little too bold in cases in spaces, but this is where you just play around with it and see what fits. So that's what we started with. This is where we got to now. I think structurally this mirrors a more advanced professional layout. It's got the signposting in the right place. It's got it answers the who, what, why, where, when, how, all of those questions that we need to answer for it. So if you want to stick around for a little bit longer, I'm going to now have a go at creating a holding video hero in our design. So this is where I'm going to look for photos and for videos, should I say. And I'm going to try and find videos that have the same type of location. So let's see, can I just mute that? And let's go for, I think I'll go for 3 videos on about 5 seconds each, which will be enough to do a rolling so we can do a demo. I'm conscious with this that they're all very similar style. We're not having much separation in terms of demographic, but because these are going to be replaced with real videos when they're ready, I'm not too worried about that. It's just to show what we can do and how a video header could work with this. So what I can do now is just download this as an MP4 video. You do need a Canva Pro account for this to work. The free account, I don't believe you can download videos. Maybe that's changed more recently, but I also don't think, I think you'd have to pay for the video separately, which I don't entirely know how that works. But if you've got another video editor that you use and you're comfortable with that, of course you can use that. So that's going to take a couple of minutes to download. There's a couple of, in that meantime, we're just going to make a couple of finer points to change. If we go to the button styles, I want to change them all to rounded corners. And let's customize that. And just drop the padding down to small. And we can see now there's a nice flow going through the button stylings on our site. Don't know why they haven't updated. Okay. I would probably choose a secondary button style for these, which make them the light a little bit thinner on them so that they match the outline, and also so they're not quite as chunky. So they're a little bit lower profile than the primary button styles, but there we go. So that works okay for that. And let's see if we can now upload our video. Not naming my designs, that's not very good, but don't shoot me. Okay, so that's uploading that video in the background. This is the final step now of this design. I think we should be just over an hour or so, maybe an hour, 10 minutes. And this, as I said, the design is to give you, the idea of these sessions is to give you some insight in terms of how experienced designers like myself will navigate through a website like this. We didn't spend a huge amount of time going through the kind of the full backstory, the going into detail on the demographics. So there may be some things that I would have missed. Whilst if we go through our full website blueprint process, then we can certainly get involved more with that aspect. What happened to the upload option? Did I scroll away from it? Okay, I think it looks like it's uploaded it anyway. Okay. So now we've got our video. So again, this is where the choice of video and the angle. So what I would recommend is when capturing the video is most of the information is off to the right-hand side. But this, I think this is playing back at 0.5 speed. And instantly there's some things that we can do with this overlay effect so it doesn't intrude too much. We can have it so it doesn't come across as far. We can certainly have a look at these button designs and change them to go into the button design and change them to white so that they stand out a little bit more on that backdrop. we can also change it to the darkest color as well. And I think that's starting to look really nice there now, especially with the flowing of the river and the gentle movement. And by going at 0.5 speed, it just slows everything down and gives it some nice breathing space to work with. So yeah, pretty happy with that for just over an hour's worth of work. I think if Sherry doesn't pick up all of these concepts and bring them into a design, I think it gives us some food for thought in terms of seeing how a video header could work. Again, we're increasing the load time, but because this is an experience, a website that her target audience will want to spend some time on just to see if the vibe's right, if it fits with what they want. And so if we can showcase that in videos, even if it just takes a few extra seconds to load the page, I think that's well worth it. Hope you've enjoyed this session. If you want extra help and support around your projects, then we've got two communities over on SKOOL. One, it's just $15 a month where you can upload your designs and I can give you feedback through the system, or I can add them as examples in live sessions like this. Or alternatively, if you want hands-on coaching through the process of building your first, or whether you're looking to build your 101st website, if you're looking at web design career using website builders like Squarespace and Wix, we can certainly help you. I'll leave some information in the description. Hop over, take a look. Otherwise, I'm hoping to be back next week with another live session.